Okay, so with these more complicated problems, and they're not like extremely difficult, they just have a little bit more going on. The first thing I would look for is, do I have any parentheses with exponents on the outside that I need to get rid of first? So that's the first thing we're going to look for. So in number one, do I have any parentheses with exponents on the outside of those? No. Okay. Then the next thing I would look for is, do I have any negative exponents? Because if I do, I would move things around to get rid of all of my negative exponents. No negative exponents here. So then we can start with just the simplifying process, and we're going to start with each piece individually. We'll start with the coefficients. What do negative 16 and positive 4? What can I divide them both by? 4. All right, so that's what we're going to do first. Negative 16 divided by 4 is negative 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, so I just divided the two numbers, the coefficients, by what they had in common. And then if you remember yesterday, I kind of mentioned that when we start simplifying these fractions that have a lot involved, I don't actually subtract my exponents. I just look at them and I say, okay, well, in the numerator, I have x to the 4th. That means x 4 times, right? Mm-hmm. And in the denominator, I have x to the 1st. So the way that I simplify this without having to worry about subtracting and then moving negative exponents again is, where do I have more x's, at the top or at the bottom? At the top. How many more do I have at the top? 3. So those 3 extra x's are going to stay at the top, which means I no longer have any x's in the bottom. Okay. We're technically subtracting, okay, but think about this. X to the 4th at the top means x times x times x times x. And then x to the 1st at the bottom, and we can cancel everything that we have the same. Well, we can cancel one of those, so that leaves me with the x to the 3rd at the top. And then for my y's, I have 3 y's at the top. How many do I have at the bottom? 7. So where do I have more y's, at the top or at the bottom? At the bottom. So they're going to stay at the bottom. And how many more do I have down there? 4. Okay. I don't have any other variables, any other number. Try that one more time. Numbers. So I can leave my answer like that, but also most of us probably would not write the 1. So you could also just write it as a negative 4x to the 3rd over y to the 4th. Either one of those would be an acceptable answer there. Does that make a little bit of sense? So I want you to try number 2. It's very similar to number 1. There are no parentheses with exponents on the outside, so I don't have to worry about that. I also do not have any negative exponents to do, so I don't have to worry about that. What I need to do is just simplify it. You can just break it down piece by piece like we did. Start with your coefficients, and then do each variable individually. And as far as negatives with fractions go, it is not proper to leave them in the denominator. However, I don't care if you leave them in the denominator, okay? It usually is left like even with the fraction bar or either put up top, but I'm okay. Like that problem there has a negative in the denominator. I'm not going to count that wrong if you put a negative down there, because I do that a lot too. I just leave it where it is usually. No parentheses with exponents on the outside that I need to get rid of. No negative exponents. So we're just going to start the simplifying process. What can I divide 25 and negative 5 by? 5. So it depends on where you want to put the negative. I don't really care. Like I usually just leave it where it is. 25 divided by 5 is 5. And negative 5 divided by 5 is a negative 1. Okay, again, you can put the negative at the top of the 5. You can also put it even with the fraction bar, just as long as your answer has a negative in it somewhere. Then I have x to the 3rd at the top, x to the 5th at the bottom. Where do I have more x's, at the top or at the bottom? At the bottom. How many more? 2 more. 2. So those 2 extra x's are going to stay at the bottom. And then I can look at my y's. I have y to the 6th at the top, y to the 4th at the bottom. Where do I have the most? How many more do I have up there? 2. Okay. So you can leave your answer just like that. You can also write it as negative 5y squared over x squared. You could also write it with a negative even with a fraction bar. Okay, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have a negative, you have a 5 at the top, a y squared at the top, and an x squared at the top. All of those mean basically the same thing. They just look a little different. Are we kind of okay? Okay, take a minute and write down number 3. X to the third, y to the fourth over x to the negative 2 and y to the negative 3. So here's my first question, and this is what I ask for every time. Do I have parentheses with exponents on the outside that I need to deal with first? No. Then I'm going to say, do I have any negative exponents? Yes. So here's what we're going to do. Is we're going to move everything that is negative, and I'm going to go piece by piece. The x to the third at the top, is that negative? No, so I'm going to leave it at the top. The y to the fourth at the top, is that negative? No, so that's going to also stay at the top. And here's where we have a little bit of difficulty, but I'm going to do it like a 2-step process. Then I go to the denominator. I have x to the negative 2. Does that need to move? Yes. So when I move it, I'm just multiplying it by what's at the top. So I'm just going to write it here for now. Okay, moving it to the top makes the exponent positive. What about that y to the negative third at the bottom? Does that need to move? Yes, so that's going to go to the top as well. And again, I'm just multiplying it by what is up there. What's left at the bottom? Nothing, which means I put a 1. Anytime there's nothing left, you put a 1. The only other thing I would need to do is, can I actually simplify that a little bit further? Can I put together the x to the third and the x squared? Yes, how many x's do I have up there? Yeah, so that'd be x to the 5th, because we're adding our exponents in. And then I can do the same thing with the y's. I have y to the 4th times y to the 3rd, which is going to give me y to the 7th. You can put it over 1 if you would like. However, that is not necessary. It's only necessary to put the 1 in the top of a fraction. It is not necessary to put it in the bottom of a fraction. Am I kind of okay there? All right, number 4, we have the fraction 2/3 in parentheses, and I have a negative exponent on the outside. So do I have a parenthesis with an exponent that I need to get rid of first? Yes, and we talked yesterday about the rule with fractions, and it says it goes to both the top and to the bottom. What is the exponent on the 2 right now? A 1. And on the 3, it's also a 1. So we remember power to a power means we multiply, so that becomes 2 to the negative 3rd. Same thing in the bottom. We give it to the 3 as well. So that becomes 3 to the negative 3rd. That exponent goes to the numerator and to the denominator. Next question. Do I have any negative exponents I need to get rid of? Yep. Yes. All right, so let's start with the 2 to the 3rd. Does it need to move? Yes, it needs to go to the bottom. And then what about the 3 to the negative 3rd? Does that need to move? Yes, so it's going to go to the top. Basically, they just switch around, right? And then I can simplify this a little bit further because I could tell you what 3 to the 3rd power is. What is that? 27. And then I can also tell you what 2 to the 3rd power is, which is 8. And then the only other thing I would check to see is, can I simplify any further? Do 27 and 8 have anything in common? No. Do I have any variables to worry about? No. All right, now we did one similar to 5 yesterday. So first question, do I have parentheses with the negative exponent or with an exponent on the outside? Yes. So what I want you to do first is give that exponent to every piece inside of my parentheses. Okay, just like we did yesterday, we're going to give that exponent to every piece inside of the parentheses. I have a 4, an a to the 3rd, and a b to the negative 2. What's the exponent on the 4? A 1. Okay. And then a power to a power says we do what with our exponents? Multiply. So that's going to become 4 to the negative 2. Then we're going to give it to the a. That's going to become a to the -6, yep. And then we give it to the b, and that's going to become b to the +4, yep, because -2 times -2 is positive. Once we've gotten rid of the exponent on the outside of the parenthesis, I ask, do we have any negative exponents that we need to get rid of? Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to move everything. Remember, right now they're all over 1. What needs to move? The 4. Okay, so that needs to go to the bottom, and it becomes a +2. What else needs to move? The a. That also goes to the bottom and becomes a positive. And then what about the b? Does it stay at the top or move? It stays at the top. And then again, I would not leave it as 4 squared. I would write it as what 4 squared is, which is 16. Now we've gotten rid of our parentheses. We've gotten rid of our negative exponents. The last thing we try to do is simplify. Do I have anything that can simplify with the 16? Is there a number at the top that I can simplify with that? No. All right. What about my variables? Do I have any variables that are the same at the top and the bottom that I can simplify? No, I just have b's at the top, a's at the bottom. Therefore, that will not simplify. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. That would just be me not paying attention to what I'm doing. Thank you. Whoops. Try that one more time. Okay. All right, we'll work through 6 together, and then I'm going to let you tell me the other ones. Copy the question, offer number 6. First thought is, do I have parentheses with an exponent on the outside that I need to get rid of? Yes. So do that first. Go ahead and give the exponents that are on the outside of the parentheses to everything inside of our parentheses. So again, that's power to a power, so we're multiplying the exponents. Same thing at the bottom. Did everybody end up with x to the 4th, y to the -6 over x to the 3rd, y to the -12? Okay. Next step is, do we have negative exponents that we need to get rid of?
Yep.
Yes, so let's do that next. Starting at the top, does the x to the 4th need to move?
No.
No. Does the y to the -6 need to move? Yes, I'm going to put that at the bottom. Whoops. It doesn't really matter where you put it, okay? I'm just going to put it as I write it, and then we'll rearrange it as we simplify. All right, at the bottom, does the x to the 3rd need to simplify? I mean, move. No, I said the wrong word, sorry. What about the y to the -12? Does that need to move? Yes. Now, before I simplify, let's look in the numerator. Do I have any variables that are the same that I need to put together like we did on one of the previous questions? No. And what about the denominator? Do I have variables that are the same that need to go together? No. All right. So now we can work on simplifying. It doesn't matter which one you do first. I tend to always write x first because it comes first in the alphabet. So I have how many x's at the top? 4. How many at the bottom? 3. Where do I have the most? At the top. How many extra do I have at the top? 1. So that 1 extra x is going to stay at the top. It really doesn't matter if you do x or y first. Okay. And then I have 12 y's at the top, and I have 6 y's at the bottom. Where do I have the most y's? Top. How many more do I have up there? 6. And if nothing is at the bottom, I put a 1. Would that also be okay to write as just x, y to the 6th? Yes. Either way. All right, I would like for you to try 7 and 8. Be careful with 7 and those negative signs, though. When I said be careful with number 7 at the top specifically, where is my negative? Inside the parenthesis or outside? At the top. Inside. So that negative is going to go with the 2 as you raise it to a power. But at the bottom, where is my negative? Outside. So that's going to stay until after you do your exponents. If it's inside the parentheses, it goes along with you as you raise it to a power. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is give the exponent on the outside of the parentheses to everything inside. At the top, however, that negative is inside the parentheses, so it is going to stay inside of a parenthesis with the 2. So that's going to become negative 2 to the 3rd. It becomes x to the 3rd, and it becomes y to the 6th. Is everybody okay with that at the top so far? Okay. Now, at the bottom, my negative is on the outside, so it does not go in the parentheses. That 6 is going to be squared. X is squared, and I get z to the 6th. So far? So good. Maybe if my computer catches up. Yep. Okay, now let's work on simplifying our numerical values first. We don't have any negative exponents, so I don't have to worry about moving anything. I just need to simplify. In the end, what is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2?
Negative 8.
Negative 8, okay. And then at the bottom, it is just 6 that is squared and then a negative in front. So that's going to be a negative 36. Okay, then I'm going to bring down my x to the third, my y to the 6, my x squared, and my z to the 6. No negative exponents to move, so we can talk about simplifying now. Negative 8 and negative 36 both divide by a negative 4. Okay, so that's going to become a positive 2 and a positive 9. Negative divided by negative turns positive. All right, x's. I have 3 x's at the top. I have 2 at the bottom. Where do I have the most x's? At the top, how many more do I have up there? 1. What about the y's? I have y to the 6 at the top. Do I have any y's at the bottom? So that's going to stay. And then all I have left are z's, and the z's I have are at the bottom. Do I have any at the top that simplify? No. So that's going to stay that. So it's 2xy to the 6th over 9z to the 6th. Let it go that way. All right, number 8, let's give our exponents first. The ones that are outside of the parentheses need to go to every term inside the parentheses. That's going to be x to the negative third and y to the negative 6. Then at the bottom, it is 2 to the negative 1, x to the negative 4, and y to the negative 3. What do you notice about all of the exponents in that problem? They're all negative. So basically everything's going to need to move. So we're just going to flip everything essentially. The x to the third is going to go to the bottom. The y to the 6th is going to go to the bottom. The 2 to the first is going to go to the top. The x to the 4th is going to go to the top. And the y to the third is going to go to the top. Now 2 to the first is just 2. Do I have anything else that can simplify with that 2? No, so that's going to stay. X to the 4th at the top, x to the 3rd at the bottom. Where do I have the most x's, at the top or at the bottom? How many more do I have up there? 1. Okay. And then I have y to the 3rd at the top and y to the 6th at the bottom. Where do I have the most y's? How many more do I have down there? 3. Anything else I need to worry about simplifying? Nope. So we would leave our answer like that, 2x over y to the 3rd. How are you feeling? Kind of okay? I got one more for you. This can be a little bit harder. Are they ready? Okay. Write it down. We're going to go through this one step by step. Now those brackets are just another set of grouping symbols. Usually when you have parentheses, you're going to use brackets as well to differentiate the 2 different groups that need to go together. So we got a lot going on. Here's a question. When you have multiple grouping pieces, do you start your way on the inside and work your way out, or you start on the outside and work your way in? Inside, right? Think about your order of operations. Parentheses come first. So we're going to start on the innermost inside. So those brackets I'm going to leave for right now. Okay, I'm going to leave everything inside those brackets and that exponent 5 on the outside. Okay, because I need to simplify inside first. That b to the negative third, is it inside my parentheses? No, so it's going to stay just b to the negative third. It does not get affected. What does get affected is this piece right here. Okay, I need to take that 4 and give it to every piece inside of those parentheses. So go ahead and do that. Keep in mind that negative is inside of the parentheses. So that is going to be a negative x to the what? What's 3 times 4? 12, okay. And then that y is going to turn into y to the 8th. Then I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. That y squared is outside of my parentheses, so it stays as it is. And I'm going to take everything inside the parenthesis. Bless you. And I'm going to give the exponent to it. Oops. So that's going to be a negative . Oh, hold on. We need to, I'm confusing myself here for a second. That negative needs to be thinking about, because if I multiply those, it's going to turn even, and that's going to mess it all up. So, go back to the top. Sorry, y'all. If I do a negative 4 times, negative times negative times negative times negative, what does that turn? Positive. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. Let me erase so I can show you exactly what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this negative being multiplied by itself 4 times. That turns positive, yes? So that's going to be a positive x to the 12. Go back and erase your negative sign there. And then on the bottom, if I think about that negative, just the negative, not the b, because remember we talked yesterday about that looks like negative 1 times b. If I do a negative times a negative times a negative, what does that stay? Negative. Okay, so I'm just going to put a negative out in the front there. And then that would become b to the 6. Did I lose everybody on that? I'm sorry. I was not looking at what I was doing before I did that. So, okay, if you see, there's a negative. If you have negative b squared x to the 5th, and that's raised to the 3rd power. Okay, think about every piece in here is getting multiplied by itself 3 times. So let's just do this. Let's do negative b squared x to the 5th times negative b squared x to the 5th times negative b squared x to the 5th. So a negative times a negative times a negative stays negative, right? Okay, and then b squared, and b squared would give me b to the 6th, right? And then x to the 5th and x to the 5th and x to the 5th is going to give me x to the... Right. So that's why it's negative. Whereas the top part, you're doing those 4 times.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the y.
Oh, I just put it in front of it because then it wouldn't look like I'm subtracting. That's all. Because multiplication, you just put it in order. I'm sorry, I thought you didn't understand why it stayed negative. And that's going to be x to the 15th. Is everybody okay with that? Yes, ma'am. I put the negative in front of the y. Does that make sense? Okay. Because if I put it behind it, it would look like it said y squared minus b. So I just put it in the front. What do you think I need to do next? What do I still need to get rid of? I need to get rid of the brackets first, right? Before I start talking about moving my exponents, I'm going to get rid of all of my grouping symbols. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to give this exponent to every piece, top and bottom, inside of my parentheses. So that's b to the negative 15, x to the 60, y to the 40. If that negative, think about the y, the negative sign in front of it. If a negative is 5 times, does it stay negative or turn positive? It stays negative, okay. And then that's going to be y to the 10th, b to the 30th, and x to the 75th. Yes, this is a hard one. Would this be a regular question on the test? Probably not. It would probably be more like a bonus question. Okay, so no, I'm not going to expect you to do a bunch of these as regular questions. Is everybody okay with where all of those numbers came from? Okay, now let's talk about negative exponents. Do I have any? Yes. All right, so let's move. Does the b to the negative 15 need to move? Yes, so that's going to go to the bottom. Does the x to the 60th need to move?
No.
Okay. Does the y to the 40th need to move?
No.
Does the negative y to the 10th need to move? Is the exponent on it negative? Okay. Again, the negative needs to stay, but I'm just going to put it in front, okay, because I don't want it to look like a minus sign. Does my b to the 30th need to move?
No.
Okay. Does my x to the 75th need to move? No. Before I start simplifying, I want you to look closely. In the numerator, do I have multiple of the same variables that I need to put together? No. In the denominator, do I have more than one of the same variable that I need to put together? Yes, I need to put those b's. So I'm going to leave the numerator as it is. I'm going to keep the negative sign in front of the bottom. What am I putting together? The b's. I have 15 and 30. That's going to give me a total of 45. Okay. And then I can just bring my x's down, and then the y's. The order is not important here. What is important is that we get our exponents correct in the end. Do I have any negative exponents anymore? No. All right. So what we need to do is just work on simplifying. What about that negative into the denominator? Is it going to cancel out with another one, or is it going to stay? It's going to stay. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it there so I don't forget about it. All right, I'm just starting at the top. I have 60 x's at the top. I have 75 at the bottom. Where do I have the most? How many more do I have? 15. Okay, again, the order of the variables doesn't matter as long as you have the same exponents. Then I'm going to go to the y's. I have 40 y's at the top. I have 10 at the bottom. Where do I have the most? At the top. How many more do I have up there? 30. And what else am I forgetting? The b's. Do I have any b's at the top that can cancel? No. You could leave your answer like that. Also, you could have written it as negative 30 and then, y to the 30th and then negative b to the 45th and x to the 15th. The order of the variables does not matter in the denominator. It just matters that the exponents are correct. Is everybody good with that? Anybody have any questions? Everything before 9 was okay and not terribly difficult? Okay, that's what majority of your questions are going to look like. If I give you something like this, again, it'll be more like a bonus question than a regular question.